Hey everyone, and welcome to the Private Podcast, where we plug in and explore the intersection of privacy, human rights, technology, and democracy. I'm your host, Derek E. Silva. Today we are speaking with Jason Rieff. Jason is the co-founder of Noizd, a music-based NFT marketplace to buy and sell the full rights to amazing, unreleased, collectible music. Jason, thanks so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Yeah, always good to chat, to link up. Looking forward to an exciting, good conversation.
Terrific, good. Let's get right into it. What is Noizd?
Yeah, so I say Noized. A lot of people say Noizd, but let's just stick with Noized. So Noized is it's an NFT marketplace. That's, I mean, pretty much what you said. Like we facilitate the buying and selling of unreleased music, as well as the rights that go with that music. And then we have a few kind of iterations to our product as well, where we have a passive income model for NFT buyers. We also are intending to allow fractionalized investments into both the NFT, but also into the royalties and rights that come with it. Um, Amongst other things, like we're looking at kind of building a community within the platform as well. So we are having features in our roadmap, which is like collaborative playlists, charge for entry playlists, so kind of galleries where one's able to show off their NFTs, but in kind of like a new way. So I guess a sentence or a way to sum it up would be, I'm not going to use the term revolutionary because that's something that I always kind of think is a bit, yeah, that's always a bit of a ridiculous term. But I guess it's kind of an, a music-based NFT marketplace that is putting a relatively new use case on NFTs as opposed to like the classical digital art. And really just a fun, cool space to explore the NFT space in and of itself.
Kind of funny that you say classical for something that's like 4 years old, but
Yeah,
things
yeah,
move so
exactly.
fast. Things move so
Exactly.
quickly in blockchain and cryptocurrencies that yeah, that is that
Yeah.
like that's old now. Like that's we've done that so
Yeah,
much.
like crypto kitties is like, that's way in the past type of thing,
Mooncats. Mooncats
Yeah.
apparently was first. And then
Oh,
and
okay,
then
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
fork, oh, what was it? This fork of ETH that lets you mint
All
as
right,
many as you
yeah,
want for
yeah,
free. I'm like, "Oh
yeah.
god, this is getting ridiculous."
I mean, but that's
Um
still like all in the past, that's like Back to the
yes,
Future stuff now.
very
And I
much,
mean,
very much.
you're right that this is only like 4 years ago, right? Um,
Yeah.
if that, but yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, I'm coming up to my 4 year anniversary of having my mind melt moment of like, oh my god, Ethereum, smart contracts, like that. Like I'm
Everything's,
just
yeah,
coming up to that 4 year anniversary of being at Fireside Conference and hearing the co-founder of Cosmos, Ethan Buckman, talk about all that, and I was just like, well, I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
down the rabbit hole I go. So
Yeah, yeah, and it's such like a long rabbit hole, I guess, that 4 years now, it's like a lot of us. I mean, I've been involved in just kind of the general space also for about 5 or 6 years, and it's just kind of like
mhm.
you look back and you just think, Jesus, like the amount of stuff that I know now compared to the average person that's just getting involved. You would think that I'm like
Yeah,
a 40-year-old professor that's been in the space studying and getting doctorates, when it's still so new. And in reality, it's still so new that there isn't much that you can actually know because the stuff that we're figuring out on a like daily basis. With
yeah.
NFTs being a very good example of that, right? We had, that was just like a new take on ways to utilize the blockchain, but that was only 4 years ago, right? Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I'm also down that rabbit hole along with many of us.
Yeah, 4 years makes you like a vet.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
you're an
exactly.
absolute veteran now. People are like, "Oh my god, you got in so early," and I'm like, yes, compared to most people, but way after the fact compared to like people who were literally helping develop Bitcoin
Yeah,
10,
exactly.
11
Yeah,
years ago. Like
and yeah,
they have way more experience still at this point. Whether they learn about other blockchains and bother
yeah,
using them or whatever, that's a whole different thing, which is really, I think, where I excel. Like I actually use this stuff, I use it on a daily basis. I'm always interacting with dapps now
yeah,
along with traditional apps, and so yeah, sure, 4 years I guess makes me a vet or makes
yeah, yeah.
gives me
Crazy. Yeah,
some cachet, I guess.
yeah, and like like every like kind of like everyday people who are wanting to get in on the space or who aren't yet even thinking about getting in, they kind of like treat a lot of people who have been in the space for I guess even like a year or 6 months, as like worshiping the ground like these people walk on and
Mm-hmm.
like trying to extract all this information. But it's like, like being in the space for 4 years doesn't mean that you know anything, right? There's still so,
No.
but you have people like, can you explain to me, what is Bitcoin or blockchain or NFTs or like bonding curves or like deflation models? And you're just thinking like, yeah, I know bits and pieces of all of that, but it's not that I'm the, it's not that I'm the textbook of that. But these people like
Yeah.
they take everything that you say as like factual scripture, right? And then it's like, yeah, but why did this happen? Like, I've got no idea. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
why that
Why did the
happened.
DAO hack
Yeah,
happen? I don't
yeah,
know. Like, I wasn't
yeah,
there for that.
exactly.
That was
Yeah,
literally just before I got in. So,
yeah, exactly,
um,
exactly.
I'm just gonna say this, and then we'll move on to the next question. My grade 10 history teacher liked to quote Socrates in saying, "I know that I know nothing."
Yeah,
And in the grand scheme of things,
that's a good
I knew
quote.
very, 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 very little. So, yeah,
Yeah,
cool. So there are some other music related NFT platforms already. But I'm curious about what sets Noizd apart from those and even from the broader music industry. Like why is this so important to bring forward, or why is this so much better than what's happening in a lot of cases right now?
yeah. So a good question. I'm not going to be like one of the kind of people who always like, yeah, it's the team and it's this plan and that plan that sets us apart. But so I guess when you look at kind of on a granular basis or a granular like level, Noise has got a lot of iterations to the product where it's not only a place that is, a marketplace to buy and sell NFTs, but we have things like our passive income distribution model. That's when an NFT buyer is able to submit a track to us, and then we distribute that track to multiple different streaming platforms that come in certain packages, and then we pay out those royalties directly to them. So we're actually allowing for NFTs to start generating direct revenue for people on the one hand, that's next to our marketplace. On the other hand, there are marketplaces or let's call them kind of, well, not companies, but like marketplaces that are offering fractionalized, like the possibility to fractionalize NFTs, but we're looking at doing the fractionalization of like royalties. Now, that doesn't make us unique, but that plus some of our other things, we're kind of bringing this all into one. Um, and then along with some of the other iterations that are coming out. So Noise is almost like, I guess, a cool way that I like to kind of describe it to people who aren't necessarily in the space is it's like, imagine if, kind of Bandcamp married TuneCore, and then they had kids that were pretty much NFTs, right? And then paired with kind of like a streaming platform. So that's kind of Noized. That's where we see our difference being is in the offering that we're giving. So the kind of grouped features, but then also focusing on the type of artists that we're focusing on. And specifically with the focus on selling not only collectibles but selling rights, and those rights basically allow buyers to get kind of skin in the game, as opposed to it just being completely speculative. I mean, yeah, sure, you're speculating on whether or not this is going to become a big musician,
Sure.
but it's not as speculative as like the digital art kind of sphere, where you're only looking for those hot people right now. But yeah, so I guess that's the kind of differentiation on an NFT base. With regards to the general music industry, what makes it kind of special or different is we see ourselves as a platform that's really kind of enabling artists for the first time to value themselves, and truly value themselves. Not wait for like labels to say, well, you're only worth this contract, or a streaming platform to say, like Spotify, your 100 million streams is only going to net you like I think like $40,000 or something ridiculous, right? But so right now we're basically putting the musician directly in contact with the fan or follower, collector or investor, and eliminating all middlemen. And at the end of the day, it's the musician who says, "I'm worth this much," and the other person who says, "Well, I'm willing to pay that much," right? So I guess that's kind of where our standout points slash differentiating factors come into play. But yeah, sorry for the long-winded answer, but
No, this is
a
this
lot
is
to
your time
say,
to talk. No, it's fine. Um, I'm not going to name names. I know of one other platform who is similar or that is building something similar in the sense that you're investing in the royalties, but from what I can tell, they're really focused on back catalogs,
Yeah,
and back catalogs of, um, I think, based on what little I know, because I don't recognize any of the names on their platform, uh, fairly, uh, um, I don't even want to say mainstream. Um, it looks like artists that appeal to an older generation than you or
yeah,
myself. My maybe your parents and my parents, maybe even older. Whereas from the previews that you've been putting out, it looks like you're, at least for now, you're really targeting um, a lot of undiscovered talent, right? So this is not back catalog stuff, at least not right now, and this is primarily unreleased music. Really good artists. I'm somewhat ashamed, or I was somewhat ashamed that I had not discovered all this English language, amazing hip hop and R&B from Africa that you've been previewing in your community. And so I will say you're kind of downplaying a little bit, but I think ultimately Noizd is really putting something new, or at least a slightly different spin
yeah,
on what's come literally months before, right? So like you were probably building in tandem, but this other platform just happened to launch a little bit before you on a completely different blockchain, and and you've got a different approach to it in general, where you've got these maybe well known at home, but certainly not well known artists abroad, who are producing fairly mainstream music that, in a lot of cases, I think if they were discovered by a British or American or Canadian market, would actually do quite well. So
yeah, for sure.
you
I
don't have
mean,
to comment on
yeah,
that, but I think it's different enough that it's obviously worth doing, and certainly competition is better for everybody anyway.
yeah, for sure. I mean,
And
like,
I'm really
yeah,
excited.
thank you. Yeah, like to be honest, I mean, I don't mind naming names. I mean, because it's always great to kind of bolster the space with like multiple platforms. But I'm sure that you're talking of A Notes. A Notes is doing a really cool job with regards to like the royalty side of things, but their marketplace is really different. They don't have the
Yeah,
distribution models. They don't really have the
right.
fractionalization. And then there's other great platforms like Catalog, which is also doing amazing stuff. That's really kind of in the EDM side. I don't think they
Mm.
do the fractionalization. They don't do the distribution, and that's very
Which
kind
could
of collectible
ultimately shut a lot
focused.
of people out. Right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if
exactly.
Armin van Buren comes with an unreleased track, you and I both know it's probably going to do really well. So the rights on that could be in the tens of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of pounds or euros. That's going to shut a lot of people out. So if that's not fractionalized, you're actually doing what the music industry already does really
Yeah,
well, which is
exactly.
cater to the elite, or to the people who can afford such things. Whereas, like you said, you're fractionalizing things. So you're actually democratizing access to investing in things similar to realty, which allows you to buy a single token of a piece of property, of a home, and get the rent from that at hopefully a really good yield.
Yeah,
So as
exactly.
opposed to pricing 10 tokens really highly, they have thousands of tokens for a single home.
Yeah,
You're kind of taking that approach, which I think ultimately opens things up to a lot of people
yeah,
in
exactly.
Africa, in Asia, in all sorts of developing countries, Eastern Europe, where owning all the right, the full rights to a single piece of music or an artist, it would just be unfeasible.
Yeah, 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 for sure. But I mean, on the other hand, it's like these other platforms are really good because they're also looking at kind of taking ways of like changing music, right? And at the end of the day,
Hmm.
that's what it's all about. And by them being kind of NFT platforms as well, or blockchain based, essentially we're kind of just bolstering this amazing space right now. And which is why I don't mind naming names, because I see that we are all different and we all have our own communities. Something that I think is really special to Noizd, which you kind of touched on with regards to the fractionalization, but it's also with our distribution model. A lot of people, a lot of mainstream people don't really understand the NFT space, or why people are going to be buying NFTs, or why they do buy NFTs, and they can't really kind of grasp the value behind owning a piece of digital art or a collectible song. Whereas
Like
with
a
us,
pudgy
we're
penguin.
saying, yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Even I don't get
So
that. So
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so with us, we're kind of bringing it up out to the mainstream, whereby, like the average person who doesn't understand the space wants to get involved just because, they're hearing about it. They can buy a track, they can give it to us, we'll put it on all the streaming platforms. And the more people listen to that track, the more money that they are making,
Hmm.
kind of die pretty much directly. And when we're looking at kind of pairing with other NFT music platforms like Audius or with Rocky, the smart contracts allow for kind of instant revenue payouts. So on the one hand, yeah, we have the fractionalization that is really opening up the space to people who don't have hundreds and thousands of ETH. But on the other side, we're also looking at the distribution side, which is pretty much opening it up to people who aren't even yet in the space. They're just sharing about NFTs on the news. So in this way, I find that it's kind of, I guess, just to kind of go back to like catalog and A note, and then I think Royal just came or was invested in very recently. It's like we all
Yeah.
have our different things, we all have our different communities, but at the same time, we're all kind of working towards a very similar goal, which is, I mean, revolutionizing music is a little bit of so kind of a ridiculous term, but a goal of bringing music into kind of a new space, and really empowering musicians in different ways, which is pretty cool. At least I think that's pretty cool.
I do too. I dabbled in the music industry for a little bit as a teenager. I started doing some remixes and stuff like that. My one claim to fame is I actually made some money on Ampcast
Oh well,
very long time ago, and had a what I thought was a talented music producer call one of my remixes of a song of his like top 10 remixes I've heard this month in Revolution magazine back in like
that's
I don't
cool.
know 2000 2001, like
Yeah,
a defunct magazine now. And then I got busy with college. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
I fell out of it, but it's certainly an industry I love, and while I don't think there are many people who deserve to make 50 to $100 million a year, doing anything, music,
yeah,
playing soccer or football or what have you, I do want talented people to be able to make a living and live a very comfortable life, doing what they love. And so, I talked earlier about
sure.
these artists you've been previewing. I think they deserve just as much fame and revenue as lots of Canadian or
Yeah,
American or
for sure.
British artists I've heard in the past. And yet, I'm sure they're not, because it's a
Yeah,
completely different market there, and in Africa especially, and I highly doubt they're making, $100,000 a year, let alone a couple million. So,
yeah,
this could potentially really change things for them, or at least give them some upfront capital to then reinvest in their career and do even better
yeah, for
stuff
sure.
later, and maybe hang on to those rights or buy the rights back later.
Yeah,
Um, Anyway, I know you're a bit of an industry veteran as well. So, can you talk a little bit more about what led you to co-found Noizd along with
yeah,
your
sure.
co-founders?
Yeah, sure. So I originally come from South Africa. My family is from Zimbabwe. I started a music
Hmm.
platform in 2015 called Panda TV. Panda means hustle in Zulu. And the idea behind Panda TV was basically helping a lot of these artists just around the continent who are really, really great, was allowing them to kind of be broadcast to kind of like the global masses, just because in multiple countries throughout Africa, there's a lot of problems with regards to, data, being able to actually put your stuff on YouTube to put it out,
Yeah.
but also the knowledge of how that stuff works. Then also like problems with marketing knowledge and stuff like that. And so through this time with Panda TV, I was fortunate enough to work with some cool labels down there, and also to really kind of become very familiar with not only the African music scene, but the global music scene. And I noticed quite a lot of problems. So one of those problems was a lot of these American kind of labels would come down and they would see these really talented artists, and they would say, we'll give you $10,000, and you need to give us 5 albums in return. And artists would generally jump at that 10,000 because that's absolutely life changing. That's more
Yeah.
money than a lot of them will see in 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years is a bit of a that's a bit of
But it's a
yeah,
significant chunk of money. Like to me, 10 grand is like, oh, that's a couple months of, that'll pay my mortgage
yeah,
for almost a year. But then everything else I still got to worry about myself. ten thousand
exactly.
dollars to somebody in Nigeria is literally almost a year's worth of
A bit
of
more, but
income.
yeah,
Never
yeah,
mind rent and everything else. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, you know, that was a problem. Then there were just other problems with kind of a lot of the artists just simply being taken advantage of by the international labels. Um, and so that kind of led me earlier this year to thinking about, you know, the NFT space and how NFTs can change music. But subsequently, since Panda TV, I've also been able to become very familiar with a lot of big labels within the US market. Um, Everyone from, you know, Heads Music, which is Wyclef Jean, to We the Best, to 100K Stack Management from Bobby Schmurder's team. And then
Hmm.
also did quite a lot of stuff in the UK market, along with SBTV. Panda TV at a stage was kind of a African video feeder to SBTV. Those are the guys who discovered Ed Sheeran. They're the largest
Oh,
kind of online music channel in the world. I think they've got quite a couple billion views behind them on YouTube. And so being able to kind of really move into the space and be in contact with a lot of these guys, we kind of looked at the general global music scene. So we looked at Africa, we looked at Southeast Asia, we looked at South America, and we realized, okay, well, all of these places have got very similar problems. And that basically led us to thinking, well, what is the best way for us to kind of change this? Which then led to me phoning up my co-founder, Aiden, and asking him if he knew any developers. Um, Aiden is an amazing guy within the general blockchain space. He's done amazing stuff from Snowfork. They're doing the Polkadot to Ethereum bridge and a few other things. And Aiden really liked the idea. And you know, so he yeah thought about it for a bit, and he said he would come on as co-founder. And then one thing led to the next, and that's how we generally got to Noizd and to where we are today. With our focus still kind of for our launch remaining on artists that we feel represent the industry problems to the extreme. So that's why it's Africa. I mean, it's not necessarily an African kind of, you know, focused platform, but we're generally focusing for the launch on Africa, and then we're paired with a bunch of other um, NPOs that are in the music space. So we're going to have drops from them, and then, you know, South American drops, and so on and so forth.
sorry. What's an NPO?
Like a nonprofit organization.
Oh, okay. Like,
Yeah.
for some reason, the acronym typically used on this side of the pond is NFP, not for profit.
Oh,
But
okay.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's terrific. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to actually investing in some of these artists. Like the music I've heard is fantastic. So I'm hoping not too high, but some bidding wars, which
Yeah.
obviously push up the price because I think a lot of these artists deserve it. And and I mean, even in the music videos that they put out, you can see like they are clearly not living large.
Yeah.
So
But it's still
very
amazing stuff,
talented
right?
people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
very
mean,
talented people who deserve more than what they have right now. So it's for there's a little bit of altruism there, but obviously if I get to own all the royalties to a really great piece of music, put that out. Moby for a long time was literally making just about all of his money off of licensing.
yeah,
Licensing for TV commercials and movies and stuff like that. He was not getting a lot of radio play,
yeah,
but he did just fine. So there's all sorts of
yeah,
angles
exactly.
you can take there. So I might be able to
Yeah,
still side hustle my way as an A&R rep
yeah,
for a little
yeah.
bit.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the artists, actually, funny enough, who are appearing on the launch, they've done some amazing international collabs with guys based out in the UK, like
Hmm.
Heady One is one of them, and you know they've gotten a lot of international love, specifically a guy called Saint Flo, who
Oh yeah,
was
I
also
heard some of
doing a
his music
track
the other
with
day.
yeah, I mean he's amazing. He was doing a track with the guys from Migos and stuff like that. But once again,
Hmm.
you know, they're being offered these junk record deals, you know, and it's crazy. I mean, we have a guy called Psychopath who's won I think he's won like 5 MTV Africa Music Awards, and you know, he's just got shunned by the international industry because he turned down a $10,000 you know music deal. So it's we have some amazing artists. So I would strongly suggest, like invest when you can invest.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some really exciting guys appearing on the launch. And Noizd is also, like fully curated. So we aim to have like a lot of like top class talent for pretty much the launch and forever onwards. Yeah.
Good. Good. Um, I think we've already talked about quite a bit of this, but in addition to what we've already said, what do you think the biggest draw is for an artist to join Noized and participate fully? Either sell the full rights and royalties to all their to a song, or I know you have one other option in there, but anyway, like
Sell the
what do you think
collectible. Yeah.
that primary draw is,
So I think that
or
it's
what have
pretty
they
much,
told
well,
you the
there's,
primary draw
yeah,
is?
I mean, I guess there's like a lot of them. It's just, well, there's nothing really to lose, right? Generally, when you record an album, so let's say it's a 12-track album, you could record up to like 50 tracks, for that 12-track album that you
Yeah,
need to cipher through. And so you end up having all of these extra tracks that you're not doing anything with. And so, when it comes to, putting it on Noizd, well, it's like if you sell it, you can actually make a killing from something that you're not using. And if you don't
yeah.
sell it, then you don't sell it because you're not using it in any case, right? Um, so yeah, it's pretty much I wouldn't call it a win-win, but it's a win slash break even situation, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's attractive to a lot of them. Specifically, funny enough, to the US artists. So we've been talking with quite a few big US artists um,
Hmm.
who are seeing big kind of dollar signs. This will be after our launch, though. And with them, it's like, so one of the guys we're talking to, I think he's had about like 12. I think his one album went triple platinum. You've definitely heard of a lot of his tracks before. He's one of the biggest legends in the music industry. In
Okay.
any case, for his previous album, he did 80 tracks for a 12-track album. And, for him,
Hmm.
he's just seeing, well, there's, I don't use any of these tracks. That album I did 2 years ago, and I can't really lose on this, right? I mean, I'll just put the track out there and it will either do really great or it will do average. But either way, it's, I'm going to make money off a song that I just generally wouldn't have even bothered showing anybody before. And that's a highly collectible thing, right? Because
Yeah.
you'll only ever be able to hear a snippet of it on the platform in any case until you buy the track. But yeah, so I
Oh,
think, yeah, it's a win slash break even situation, and I think that's pretty attractive.
yeah. I mean, pardon me. That sounds. You're at least gonna have who the artist is there, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course.
Okay, all
Like,
right.
yeah,
If I can't
you've
hear the
got the
music, that's
artist,
fine.
the
But
cover
at least
work.
knowing who it is, um,
Yeah,
and especially for African artists, but even for artists in developing countries with a career, studio time costs money, producer time costs money, and then out of those 80 tracks that individual recorded, and only 12 to 15 made it on the album, depending on how big they are and how much of a say you especially if you're a smaller artist, you end up in a position where the record label's like, no, these are the 12 tracks we want, or the
exactly.
15,
Yeah,
or what have you, as opposed to these other ones which might go gangbusters, right? Somebody might just or millions of people might adore, but because it's not hot at the time, or some old white dude sitting at the end of a
yeah,
very long table was like, it literally goes nowhere, and you might absolutely have some actual diamonds in the rough there, that could get streamed 100 million times, a billion times on Spotify and Apple Music and Deezer, yeah, and Pandora, and and you make a decent amount of money, at least get your money back on
yeah,
well,
yeah,
hopefully be a
exactly.
fractionalized NFT on
Yeah,
that one,
yeah,
because
exactly.
it sounds like it might
Yeah,
the price might get pretty up
yeah.
there, but yeah,
Are
no,
you
that's really, really
yeah,
cool.
are you familiar with a musician called Shaggy? He did a track called it was like
Yes,
it wasn't
of
me when they
course.
call me in the song.
Yeah,
Wasn't me.
yeah, yeah.
So
It wasn't me.
yeah, yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah,
before it wasn't me too. I've known Shaggy way before, or at least an album or two before he went really mainstream.
yeah, 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 exactly. So I was fortunate enough to find myself at a dinner with Shaggy about 3 years ago, and
Mm,
we just got onto the topic of the track of "It Wasn't Me," right? And subsequently, there's been a really cool interview on that. But in any case, he had done his two previous albums before that album. The record label was going to drop him because his numbers had gone down, and he recorded this
mm,
really cool track called "It Wasn't Me." Um, they really loved it. The label absolutely hated it. They said they're not going to release it, and they subsequently dropped him, I believe. Then a DJ in, I think it was Hawaii or somewhere, he somehow downloaded this track off LimeWire and basically
I was gonna
played
say
it
Napster or
once.
something.
Yeah, I mean, this
LimeWire.
was God knows how many years. And so, in any case, he played it once. The phones just didn't stop ringing of people saying like, "Where can I get this track? Where's this track?" etc., etc.
Yeah.
And I think that they struggled to even find the name of that artist who had done the track. And then I believe like 3 weeks or 3 months or something, the song was still blowing up, and now it had moved from Hawaii into the broader, like the
Mm.
broader world. Then Shaggy was like, got told, dude, we're hearing a track everywhere. And the next thing he had like this monster hit, but it just goes back to what you were saying. The label said like this track is BS, right? But everybody absolutely loved the track, and that's kind of what
Yeah.
Noizd is doing, is saying, like we're kind of decentralizing that process in a sense, and allowing you guys to, as I said, like value yourself, not only monetary wise, but also like song wise.
Yeah. So, I know it's coming soon, or at least you're hoping to launch soon. Roughly, when do you think the platform is actually going to launch? What are you aiming for?
Um, we're aiming for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Could be four, but probably around three, if not sooner. There's been quite a
Okay.
few delays, but yeah, the team's expanded. I think there's about 13 of us now,
Oh, nice.
majority being devs, and so yeah, we're pushing forward. There's a lot of stuff on the roadmap that we wanted to launch after the MVP that we're thinking of actually bringing into the MVP. So yeah, but I would say about 3 to 4 weeks. Hopefully, fingers crossed, if not before.
Okay, terrific. So, for anybody who's listening, that's late September, like third or
Yeah,
fourth week of September. So, and I think this will be out right around then. So if you're listening, go check out, I guess, noizd.com now might
yeah,
be launched. And I
yeah,
know you have a bit of a bonus for people who subscribe or sign up early, a free NFT for people who sign up
yeah,
early, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have an
So,
amazing artist down in Zim. He just won Best New Artist, I think last year at also at MTV Africa. He's done a full Noized album for the
oh
launch.
wow.
So we're going to be giving away like kind of prints of some of the tracks, and then five of the tracks will actually be the originals as well. So yeah, pretty exciting. Sign up. Yeah,
So
that's
you
just
might get
kind of
your
our
first
way of
investment
saying
for
thank you.
free.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
nice.
much, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm already signed up. I signed up months ago. So for anybody who hasn't, you definitely want to get in now, but ideally before it launches or just after. Um, cool. So, I mean, all this kind of brings me back to this feeling that ignoring or giving really bad deals to certain artists in certain markets. Like I said, I've heard all these great English language music that I think could be played on the radio in certainly just about any country. Because even when I was in France last month, or I guess almost 2 months ago now, I heard lots of English language music, and like it's doesn't really matter where you go anymore. There's English music on the radio, and certainly in Europe, other languages beyond the native language as well, which doesn't typically happen here in North America. But pardon me, it kind of makes me feel that ignoring a market or giving such bad deals to some of these artists is almost akin to censorship, because you're almost either you're kind of setting people up to fail. Like $10,000 for 5 albums, as an example, is a terrible deal. And I remember Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins years ago, like a decade ago, railing against this really bad record deal that Smashing Pumpkins had signed because it was so many albums as opposed to like a period of time, right? Where like whatever you produce in the next 5-10 years we'll take, and that's ours. But it was no, it was like a 4 or 5 album deal, and they're like, we either can't keep the band together, or we're not in the headspace to produce more music right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so anyway, it feels more or less akin to censorship. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe the artists feel that way too. I don't know.
I don't. So I think I think that censorship in and of itself is kind of a, a line that you need to kind of tread very carefully upon. And in some ways, yes, it's right. In some ways, it's not. when it comes to this, I don't really see it as being like too akin to like censorship in the true form, but I see it more as kind of a lot of this kind of business is just like kind of morally incorrect. And I think that taking advantage of people's lifestyle situations and stuff like that is just an immoral thing to do.
Sure.
But it's like, I mean, Madonna at that one stage, I think she signed a 10 album deal for like 120 million. She wanted to do that, right? So that's fine. It was a 360 deal. I guess it was a pretty bad deal in a sense. Maybe she would have made more than the 120. But then there are other artists who are signing, like I don't know, 50K deal for like 5 albums, 360, and that's just because they're whether it's in the States and they're coming out of like really rough kind of neighborhoods, or whether it's in South America, or like I guess Brazil, like in Rio, there's a lot of kind of favelas
Hmm.
with a lot of amazing artists, or whether it's
Yeah.
in Angola, and you're taking advantage of someone's life circumstance. I just think that's an immoral thing to do. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's like censorship. I just think that these people are being, it's like, we will offer you this, and if you do not accept this, then we're going to ignore you, you know? So it's kind of like a threat, as opposed to, yeah, we're just ignoring you. It's more along the lines of,
Yeah.
you either
Yeah.
take our deal or we're going to ignore you, and it's up to you. And as an artist, you don't want to be ignored, right? Um,
Sure.
so especially an artist that's kind of, kind of living a hard life, it's like, wow, I can make some cash and I won't be ignored. So yeah, I wouldn't say censor. I just think it's a lot of BS that's morally incorrect, or
Sure. Fair
just
enough.
morally incorrect. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a really recent example. I just watched this Netflix original film called Beats, where I don't remember the actor's name, but this guy who's been around since like the Cosby Show days. He's a former burgeoning music industry or music manager, and kind of fell out of favor with his local uh, uh, industry in Chicago, and is now working as a security guard at a high school. So
Well,
certainly has fallen from where he'd like to be.
oh,
Um,
yeah,
and I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody who wants to watch it, but basically his soon to be, or his separated wife, his estranged wife, is the principal, sends him out to go find some kids to bring them to the school so that they can avoid
yeah,
budget cuts, because all these kids are just staying home because it's how dangerous the south
yeah,
side of Chicago is. And he discovers this very talented kid, and with music, and things kind of go from there. But it delves a little bit into the business side of things, of like what it means for this guy to be this kid's manager if this kid wants to make music as a career, and what those contracts look like, and how an artist or producer can get screwed over in so many ways. And yeah, and so it's, if you want to see very heartwarming
kind of,
look
yeah.
at a little bit of the business side of things and what happens behind the scenes that maybe you
Check out
don't
Beats.
see
Yeah,
as just a regular fan. That's a decent example. And there's all sorts of other movies where it gets touched on. It's All Gone Pete Tong, and all sorts of films like that.
yeah.
Idris Elba just put together a show with Netflix called Turn Up Charlie, where he's the DJ, which is something he
Yeah,
actually does in real life,
yeah, 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 for
mostly for
sure.
fun, I think.
Yeah,
But again, a look behind the scenes of like, oh, I got a manager, I got a record deal. What's happening here? How hard is it to even get a gig somewhere, etc.
yeah.
So
I actually think,
yeah.
if I'm not wrong, I think that SBTV might have been producers on the show, because Idris is pretty good friends with Jamal, who's their CEO. So I think that they also
Mm,
had a lot to do with that. But it's funny because like SB based out in the UK, they also, I guess, kind of noticed these problems within the industry like really early, and they're fully on YouTube, and yeah, it's kind of like kind of seeing how the UK scene has progressed is pretty much, you have a really kind of deep dive into the kind of behind the scenes kind of problems and stuff like that.
hmm
But yeah.
So, do you think NFT or music royalty marketplaces, built in this way using NFTs and blockchain, do you think that can actually become like a real competitive alternative to, uh, um, you know, lesser known artists getting discovered by record labels who specialize in independent artists, or the Sonys and the BMGs and the EMIs of the world, and Universal, like giving continuing to offer these crappy deals in a take it or leave it sense.
I
Do you think we
think,
can actually expose more talent to more people, get these people, get at
yeah,
least some artists, out of their current
kind of,
situation,
yeah,
get them the notoriety, you and I
yeah,
and probably others think that they actually do.
yeah. I think, so like, I don't know if it's like, I think that there's a lot of a lot of like there can be a lot of synergies between both. I pretty much picture a lot of record labels. So like there's a lot of problems that record labels also go through, right? They sign these one hit wonders for a lot of cash based out in the States, and then they just don't kind of
Yeah,
recoup that money. So I think that there'll also be like record labels who are buyers, right? They'll want to buy that one hit, release that track, see if it does anything good, and then offer the artist a deal. And if the track has done really well, then the artist is going to get a really good deal, right? So I don't see it as like a
sure.
kind of competitor to labels. I see kind of a lot of symbiosis between those. But that's the same with like the gaming industry, right? Or like licensing. I don't necessarily see it as kind of ruining the licensing business. For example, when Rockstar released GTA with the millions that they paid to have the music in the car in GTA, I see this as kind of like I see this as being able to complement the licensing business, also with regards to film production. So I don't really see it as kind of a big competitor to being able to discover or I even guess like publicize, like new big music or anything. I see it as a way for both B2B businesses as well as B2C to kind of pick up on a new kind of way of discovering artists, but also kind of maximizing their own personal profits with these artists while getting these artists the money that they deserve. But I mean, there's just so many different opportunities, right? You can essentially, so for example, with a platform like Noizd, you can essentially start your own micro A&R label, right? You can just go buy up 100 different tracks with the rights, and suddenly you have your own record label, right? And
Don't tempt me.
that can cost you a lot, but you could also, you could also find a lot of cheap tracks that are $100 for the rights, and then you suddenly have a record label, right? And if these guys boom, then you still own tracks that. So there's just so many different possibilities. Also with just like collectors and the collectible side of things. Also from the guys who may have connections to the music industry, right? I'm buying up a track, I'm buying the rights. I then take that track to the label, I sell that to the label. Suddenly this track is huge. And then it's win-win, right? Because suddenly this artist, who's an indie artist, is known by everybody because the label took a chance buying that track from the middleman, now
Hmm.
being me. And everybody wins, right? The label wins, the artist wins. The label makes a killing off that track. The artist essentially makes a killing off the fame that he's getting. So, it's providing everybody with skin in the game. Um, and ultimately, everybody who owns a track wants the artist to succeed because if the artist
Yeah.
succeeds, then they've made money on their investment and their investment accrues continuous value. So it's helping artists, make a lot of money, but it's also helping artists with their marketing because, I buy your track, I want to market you as much as possible, right? Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, I see a lot of synergies between kind of the global industry, not only, like labels and stuff like that, but a lot of synergies, a lot of possibilities, a lot of, ways to kind of shake up the way music is consumed and distributed and, acquired. Yeah, I see NFT marketplaces as being a good kind of medium to that shake up.
Fair enough. Yeah, there's definitely. It's funny you bring up Grand Theft Auto. I've definitely heard some music in the previews that I'm like, there's a lot of cursing here. Clearly, adult oriented music, but yeah, they would make killer songs for a game like that where it's real world ish, and
Yeah,
you have some interactivity with something playing some music, radio in a car or something
yeah,
like that.
for sure.
Some of those songs would be amazing in a game like that. So let's call Rockstar GTA 6. we'll, we'll
Yeah,
we'll make it a
it's a coming.
Noized
Yeah,
exclusive.
yeah, for sure.
So the final question I think we should end off on here is about the marketplace itself. And I'm talking about just general music royalty NFT marketplaces. You probably have an idea of how big this can get for Noized. Do you know roughly how big it is right now, and if yes or no, if you could talk a little bit about that. But overall, how big do you think this type of thing can get?
Yeah, so I don't know how big the NFT music marketplace is, and I don't know where that's going to go either. But I think that the NFT space, if you're just looking at NFT marketplaces, in the first 3 months of this year, I think they grew from like 2.5 billion in like money flow to 22 billion, which is, that's like a 10x kind of
Yeah,
thing, right?
the
Um,
GDP of many countries.
yeah, the GDP plus a lot more of many countries. Um, so yeah, and so the NFT marketplace space, I think, is just going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. Who's going to actually survive? I'm not too sure. The NFT space in general, though, I think is going to be huge. I think that it could potentially be bigger than the DeFi space. I think that there's just so many possibilities from anti-corruption, money laundering. There's just so many different possibilities whereby NFT technology can be used.
Hmm.
So I think, you could break it up into two, like how big is the NFT marketplace space going to grow? All I can say is it's grown immensely. The money flow into the actual space is gigantic. And, who survives? I've got no idea, but it's definitely going to grow and grow and grow. But when you look at the NFT space in and of itself, I think that the use cases for NFTs are just going to be more and more and more. I think Noizd is already kind of one of the steps in a new type of use case with regards to the selling of rights, the syndication of music, the instant royalty payouts. I think Audius is also a great kind of a great example of a totally new kind of use case, right? With NFT streaming.
Yeah.
And then, there were like super rare as well, or rareable. Those are also kind of new use cases with digital art as opposed to kind of like the original kind of avatar kitties or the NBA Top Shot kind of collectibles, that sort of stuff. So I think that the use
Hmm.
cases are going to just continuously grow and grow and grow. And it's a really exciting time to be in the space in general, right? So yeah, that's my thoughts. I hope that answered the question. Um,
You answer the
yeah,
questions as best you can. That's fair. I'm not here to pummel you back down or anything like that. Terrific, Jay. Thank you so much for taking some time to be here today. I think it was really great to hear about how Noizd can really open up opportunities, better opportunities to artists. Let pretty much everybody play in that game, in that music industry game, a little bit, and hopefully expose us to more talented people who deserve, I think, a little bit more recognition. So thanks so much for building it, and we're looking forward to the launch.
thank you for having me. And for everybody else, if you're interested, sign up, noizd.com, Noizd. Yeah, look forward to having you all around. Derek, thank you so much. It's been, yeah, really cool. Let's do another one at some stage.
Okay, we'll check back in a year or so, see how things are going.
For sure, for sure.
All right.
Awesome, cool. Thank you. Alrighty.
Thanks. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. And until next time, stay free.